The next section of the stress management plan is about building strong bodies, because when we have strong bodies, we have stable, calm minds, and we're able to solve problems. Within this category, there are 4 things that we're going to be doing. We're going to be learning about the importance of exercise, learning about the power of relaxation, and making sure that we're eating right, taking care of our nutrition, and sleeping right. Let's start with exercise. It goes back to stress biology. Remember that we are designed to be able to run from the tiger. And when we are stressed, adrenaline goes through our body. Think of that as a turbocharged hormone, and it changes our body in so many different ways. The first thing it does is we get butterflies because the blood is leaving our belly to go to our muscles so that we can jump and run. And then our heart beats fast so we can pump that blood. And we breathe fast so we can get oxygen into our systems, and we sweat so we can cool off, and our pupils get big so we can run from the tiger, and we can't think clearly because we're not supposed to talk it out. What is adrenaline telling us to do, or epinephrine telling us to do? It is telling us to run. And when we do, then what we're communicating to our bodies is, I've escaped. And when we don't, what happens is those hormones continue to circulate unused and confused, and they're like, the tiger could still be there. It could be there. It could be anywhere. No wonder when we don't exercise, we have anxiety and an inability to think stably. We know that exercise has been scientifically proven to decrease rates of depression, lower anxiety, lower symptoms of ADHD. We also know that schools that have put into place exercise programs have decreased bullying, decreased violence, and most importantly, increased grades and attention in class. The next thing I want to talk about is the power of relaxation. Because you know what the truth is? The truth is you can't run from all your problems. You know, if your teacher gives you a test and it scares you, you can't go, gotta run. So sometimes we have to be able to relax. If only we could just decide when to relax. If only we all had little buttons we could push or switches that we could flip into a relaxed state of mind, then we could think and we could problem solve. We do have switches that you can flip, and it goes back to stress biology. When we're talking about the nervous system, we're talking about the brain, the spinal cord, and the nerves that tell you what to do. Within the nervous system, there are 2 halves. The first half is voluntary. I choose to walk, I choose to talk, I choose to turn. Anything you choose to do is voluntary. But there's also an involuntary half, the things you don't think about. You don't think about your heart beating, you don't think about breathing, you don't think about dilating, you don't think about digesting. It just is. It's involuntary. Within the involuntary half, there are 2 parallel halves. It breaks down one step further. Now, what do you know about parallel lines? They never meet. One half is the I'm chillin' half, also known scientifically as the parasympathetic half. The other is there's a tiger chasing my butt, known scientifically as the sympathetic half. It's one or the other, which means that if only we could find that switch and flip it to the I'm chillin' half, then our brain becomes restored, because if you're chillin', you're also able to think and to problem solve. Where are we going to find that switch? Let's go back to stress biology. What can I choose to do? Can I choose to get the blood back to my belly? Nope. Sweat back into my armpits? Nope. Can I slow down my heart rate? Nope. Shrink my pupils? Nope. The only thing you can choose to do is to breathe. When you change your breathing from the breathing we do when we're nervous or tense, which is short and rapid, when you change that breathing into the real kind of breathing, the incredible calm kind of breathing, the entire system flips into the chillin' parasympathetic system, and then we can think and we can problem solve. So what do we need to do? We need to teach kids what that looks like. If you tell the average young person to take a deep breath, they're going to do this because it looks so good, right? But that's not what we're talking about. We're actually talking about first the belly breath, followed by the chest breath. The same way we teach singers to sing so that they can carry their notes for a long time. We're going to have this kind of breath. Belly out first, followed by chest. The amount of air you move is hugely increased. And what is happening when you stimulate your lungs to stretch that far is the I'm chillin' part of your nervous system turns on. And in case you think I'm inventing this, have you heard of yoga, of mindfulness, of so much of Eastern medicine, of meditation? It starts with breath, and with our breath, we can then think. The next part of the stress management plan is nutrition. Strong bodies are built from what goes into them. We get energy from 3 different kinds of food: proteins, carbohydrates, also known as sugars, and fats. But your brain gets energy only from the sugars, which means that how our brain receives sugar makes a really big difference to our ability to focus, to concentrate, and to problem solve. So what do we need to teach our children? How to keep themselves stable. That means that those quick, sweet sugars that come in candies or sugared cereals, your brain receives sugar like this, whoosh, a high and then a crash. Not the way to manage stress, not the way to focus. But when we eat complex carbohydrates, meaning things that don't taste quite as sweet, like whole grains, fruits and vegetables, then our sugar remains stable and we're able to think and to focus better. Good nutrition matters. The last piece within this category of taking care of your body is the importance of sleep. You know, when you've got enough sleep, you can handle almost anything. When you're exhausted, big problems feel like much bigger problems. And small problems that normally you wouldn't even see as a problem can really get to you and make you irritable. Sleep matters. And let me tell you something. Many young people consider it almost a badge of honor to stay up late, especially if it's doing schoolwork or working on some project. It's not a badge of honor. It's setting them up for anxiety the next day. We need to tell our kids that there always needs to be enough sleep in their life. And if it means that they don't get to finish a project, they'll do a better job getting new knowledge the next day. They always have to get enough sleep. Here's a couple of other things that are tricks for them to know. We are designed to be awake during the light and to fall asleep at nighttime. And what happens is that system gets kind of messed up because we have lights. It also gets messed up with our screens. Our phones. Our phones have mostly blue light, and that keeps us up. So what we want to do as we're preparing to go to sleep is we want to be dimming the lights an hour or 2 before we go to bed, and we want to switch our phones to the night mode, which actually changes from the blue light to another hue, which doesn't keep your brain as stimulated. Next, we want our bodies to cool off as we're ready to fall asleep. So we want to exercise. We just talked about exercise, but here's what you need to know. Exercise heats your body up. So if you do it right before you go to bed, you're not ready to fall asleep. Best time to exercise? About 4 to 5 hours before you want to fall asleep. If you haven't exercised and you want to have that effect of cooling down, a hot shower or a bath about an hour before you fall asleep is going to get you to cool down. But here might be the most important part. You don't want to take your problems to bed. And that's what people do. You know, their minds are spinning with all sorts of things and they're going 1,000 miles an hour, and when do they slow down? In bed. But if you begin thinking about your problems in bed, then you become activated. And when you become activated, you're running from the tiger instead of sleeping. So whatever strategy you end up using, which we're going to talk about in the next section, whatever strategy you end up using to release it, to release your emotions, do that before you go to bed. Actually think and say to yourself, I'm done. Me, I'm a list maker. I have a lot of things to do and I'm always worried about the next day. I will make a list, sometimes on paper, sometimes on the computer, and I literally will look at it and go, done. That way I don't have to wake up in the middle of the night worried about tomorrow. That's mine. There are all sorts of different ways of managing emotions and managing stress, but the point is you want to be able to go, done. Now I'm ready for a restful night. And when you have a restful night, you can deal with tomorrow.